Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Red Inc. So it's that time, we're making our tier list predictions for BT10. Now remember, this is just a guess, okay? We can't really take the JP format and then just transfer it. That never works. It never works at all. Also, we've got a ban list that JP format didn't have. JP had 4 Jet Sylphies, whereas we only have 1. That is a massive impact and will actually impact this list tremendously. Bringing a yellow hybrid down so far will allow so many decks to step up. It was expected Shoutmon is just going to crush everything, but honestly, I think now that other decks can take the spotlight a little bit more now that they don't have to worry about yellow hybrid so much, it's actually going to kind of balance out a bit. So I'm really excited to show you what we've got here. Also, don't forget our new memory marker this month is Tokomon. So if you're a Patamon fan or just an Angel fan in general, this is a great little cute memory marker to pick up. Goes with our Naromon really nicely if you got that one already. You can find this on our Etsy page, link in the description below. Also there you can find all of our previous memory markers that we featured on the channel, as well as some of our Battle Red Inc. merch. All right, and then joining me today, I've also got Yu-Gi-Oh! Souls here again, just providing that extra little bit of insight for the offside of the coin here, for different angles of approach, just about some ideas off of. So thanks for him joining me again here today, so you don't have to listen to just my own personal thoughts. All right, so right here, we've got the list pulled up for you guys, and this is where our last list fell for the BT9 format with EX2 and all that added in here. And so this is where our previous predictions went. Now, some of this was a little bit more off. Some decks actually really just kind of took center stage and like absolutely blew us away, like yellow purple hybrid, yellow purple security control, really great deck. Wasn't even represented on the list actually, so I think that's going to be a great one to talk about as well. And then just kind of other decks in here, really kind of this is where a lot of the stuff fell. I think Metal X probably hit a little bit higher, and some of this was a little bit lower. Black War Greymon didn't really see hardly any play at all, but I think we're going to see a big shift in that. We saw a lot of Alphamon at first, but Grandis was the only one that consistently topped over and over and over. Alphamon, like as the set went on, just we saw less and less of it for multitude of reasons, and then finally it really just kind of fell off like way down in A tier. Grandis though still held strong, I think, in just consistently topping over and over and over. Like, was it the best deck or anything like that? No, I don't think we really had like a true S tier format. We actually had a really nice, diverse, just regular format. Like everything was in A tier, everything could top. It like every week we saw the results come in, and it was just change and change and change. Like the top 16s would just change and change and change. Yellow purple security control probably appear in the top 2, top 3 by the end of the format. Just had a great showing and a great representation. But that's all in our past now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this list and kind of adjust it to fit in with the new decks of the format. So as we go on, we're going to change up this our page here, so where stuff is going to go. First off, just like some obvious stuff, we're going to move some stuff down into C tier. Machinegermon just not really doing so well. Also, with so many cards reducing, preventing the reduction of play cost, that really hurts a lot of it as well. We're gaining memory back, lots of memory blockers, that sort of thing. Really hurts it. Diaboromon also just has not really been doing too well. There's too much removal that can kill it, I think, in the format. Even if they spam out a bunch of tokens, anything that's like DP based deletion just absolutely crushes this, and there's just too much of it in the format. So it's also in a really bad spot. Justimon, while it is getting some more support, it is just too like key piece focused and not enough searching to really get those pieces out. Like Grandis is also pretty heavy on combo pieces needed, but It has tons and tons of tools to get it there, as well as lots of X antibodies for more draws. Justymon just does not have that. Jellymon, the All Force Jellymon deck, you know, we did see some play in it, so I think it's still going to see some B tier here, as well as Beelzemon. I actually think Beelzemon might be top of B, bottom of Rogue tier now, simply because Reaper has just fallen even more. Like, it had that spike there for a minute. It's like, oh, Reaper's not dead. Reaper's doing really well. And then it disappeared again. You know, it's like, it's here and then it's gone again. And as long as it's not in the format, Beelzemon, I think, has a decent shot of doing well. It's got nice removal just sprinkled all throughout it. It's getting some more support in this set. So I think it deserves to be up there. Do you think it is deserving of a promotion up to Rogue? Or do you think it should stay in the, like, top of B?
I think it deserves a promotion up the Rogue. It's a really good deck, and the players who have stayed consistent to it know what they're doing against the D-Reaper matchup, and against most matchups, the deck can pop off really well, and whenever it gets going, it just doesn't stop.
Right, yeah, it's very much one of those, once it's established, it's just got everything it needs. I think Dex definitely needs to come down here into C tier. Like, it had access to, you know, Death X, but, like, Death X is a great card, fantastic. Its price is, like, the most expensive, I think, secret rare, just regular secret rare, that's actively being used right now in the game, but the rest of the deck just doesn't really do much of anything. Like, it's really difficult to set up. You need all this stuff in trash and things like that, and it doesn't have a ton of ways to get stuff in trash. It's not like a true purple deck that has just a crazy amount of mills and draws and discards. It doesn't really utilize any of that stuff, so I definitely think it's kind of way down in here. Let's see, what else here? Oh, Ordainemon. And this is pure Ordainemon. Do you think B or C? Not Mastamon, but I mean just like pure, like Regulmon and Ordainemon focused decks here.
C tier. Bottom of C tier.
Yeah.
I like that deck, but
yeah, it's a tremendous amount of memory. Yeah, you tried it a few times to try to make it pop off, and it just didn't work out for you?
No.
Dang, bummer. Sakuyamon here. We're going to touch back on Sakuyamon here in a bit. Actually, we've got Maid Mode now to help represent it, so we'll come back to that one. Shivamon. This is pure Shivamon, not including Bloomlord. We're going to talk about Bloomlord later. Bloomlord uses a whole lot of Shivamon stuff, and Shivamon is kind of like a secondary mega, like a mini tech into Bloomlord decks. But I don't think pure Shivamon is really all that great. Like, where do you think? You think bottom of B? Like, it's got new support. It can steal from the Bloomlord support if you wanted to make a pure Shivamon deck, but
I'm gonna say right behind Jellymon.
Right behind Jelly. Okay, that feels right there. Yeah, because it's got some support that it can steal from and still be pretty prevalent, but it's still just Shivamon. It can't quite hang, I don't think. We've got, oh man, this is your boy right here. You want to take this one?
Much as I love Gallantmon, was just how much setup it takes to commit to the deck. Like, and then not to mention you have chances of breaking, not seeing your mega. It's Red's biggest problem, and Gallantmon kind of suffers from it. Building up in a format where they're going to turbo out, it's going to have to be like maybe top of C tier or bottom of B.
Yeah, I think bottom of B feels right. Yeah, it's just, it does require a ton of setup. Now, it does have lots of X antibodies, so it gets tons of draws. But it doesn't have any good way to play Takato for free, and it really kind of needs that. Like Sakuyamon, you know, their level 5 plays out their memory fixer for free, and that's huge. And even Justymon gets to play out their tamer for free. But yet we don't see that with Gallant, and I think it definitely kind of suffers there. You know, just a good Wind Digivolving play out Takato would have been really, really nice. Definitely helped it. And yeah, it's very much a control the board sort of deck where you don't really see a whole lot of that. Like a lot of the stuff you're trying to go against in this format that was way up here is going to be stuff that's going to sit in raising area, or it's going to have, protection like armor release and things like that. And it was just, too much of a big problem in the format. And I don't think it's going to get any better with the coming format, because the coming format's going to be very similar, especially with Shoutmon, tons of tamers and stuff like that. It's just not going to be able to really board control, I don't think. So yeah, I think you're right. Bottom of B here. Green hybrid. Now this is, the red base with the green hybrid, like mid to high end. I think it's still rogue. I think it's just right where it needs to be. I think it's still pretty solid. We've seen it still top here and there, just the people that are committed to it that haven't moved on. I think that's really the only thing holding it back, is we just don't have the representation playing it. But I think it's still a great deck. It can still do great things, piercing, all that stuff, multiple security checks, especially when you work in that red package into it. I think it's still a phenomenal deck, and definitely very much rogue tier for sure. If maybe we saw more representation of it, it would still, it'd be a little bit higher. Actually, I think we could go ahead and move it up higher, because we did actually see some tops this format.
It also got more draw power with Digimon.
Digimon, which
the EX02 Digimon, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's just it's in a great spot. D Reaper, I think it's still rogue. Like, it's still got that punch power. It takes a long time to set up, though. Now, it's got some nice, stall tools, I think, especially with, the gatekeeper and things like that. But I don't know. I think it might be bottom of rogue tier, simply because I think Black War Greymon's going to see way more play, and Black War Greymon slaps the dog poo-poo out of this deck, simply because if you follow the channel, you've actually seen these decks go head-to-head a few times, and what it does is that Metal Greymon allows it to attack into unsuspended Digimon, so it just swings right over that mother, and then just completely ends that whole deck. So I think with the more Black War Greymon play, less and less of Reaper we're gonna see it. You think that feels pretty right?
Yeah, I feel like that's correct.
Blue hybrid, where do you think blue hybrid's gonna fall? Do you think it's gonna fall? Do you think it's gonna stay here? We haven't really seen it do anything in a while, and it's getting further and further from being playable. I feel like it doesn't really do much against a lot of the decks that we have these days.
C tier. It's once that Tommy got hit, I feel like the deck just kind of died.
Oh golly. Let's see. C, top of C, bottom of B. Actually, I think I am going to put it in C, because hybrid decks are going to struggle. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of Black War Greymon plays here. A lot of people teching against tamer-built decks. So I think, blue hybrid might actually be down in C tier now. Yeah, C or bottom of B. War Greymon X. Man, this deck just hasn't really done much of anything. Metal Garurumon X saw tons of play and tons of success. But man, War Grey just did not have any kind of good representation. Never saw it really do much of anything. I'm thinking B tier. Even Ulforce Jelly saw some representation over War Greymon.
I think it's actually behind Shivamon in B tier.
Yeah. I mean, with Shivamon getting a little bit more support, yeah, it definitely could be. Yeah, that's a shame. I like that deck. It feels like it should be good. I mean, that War Greymon X ability is pretty great. But yeah, it's just kind of in an awkward spot. All right, and then Mario's deck here. He got first at the Gen Con Regional with this. And I think it still stands. I think it's still in a pretty great spot. It can very much OTK. As long as it can keep pace with Shoutmon, I think it'll be fine. It has the ability, because a lot of the decks that really counter Shoutmon, this counters those decks. So it's like a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing. If they play Shoutmon, you play some sort of security control-ish deck to counter Shoutmon, and then this red hybrid here, or ancient, because it's not even really true red hybrid anymore. It's just pure ancient, build up in raising area into your ancient, and then just come out and punch them in the face. It's still super solid against those security control decks. So you think top of Rogue feels pretty right, or do you think we should move it up into A?
I think it should stay in Rogue. I maybe later in the format, when I start to see it top, I'll think it'll deserve an A spot. But as of right now, I think it's going to be heavy Rogue.
Yeah, it takes so long to build up, and if you just don't see those pieces in against the correct matchup, I think it definitely kind of suffers there. Still just missing a little bit of consistency, I think. Not much. Like, it's still solid. The whole deck is red, so you can really kind of max out on, like, red memory boost and things like that. We'll just have to see. I think it's, yeah, definitely at top of Rogue. Could work its way into A, though. Next, we've got, let's see, what are we going to look at next? Let's go, I don't want to talk about Black or Greymon yet. Let's talk about Alphamon. Alphamon just saw less and less and less play. Why do you think that is? Like, less and less play, less and less representation. Do you think it was just so OP that people were like, they felt bad and they wanted to move on to something else? Or do you think it legitimately struggled in the format?
I think it struggled a bit because it kind of has the same issue as Gallantmon. You have to get those pieces to go for the OTK. And you set up something like, again, I play Musketeers. I drop a Ghazi, they're not going to be able to gain their memory to go into their OTK combo.
That's for sure. I played Alphamon a lot in the beginning of the format, like a lot of other people did, and I fell off of it, but that was also because I was doing decently well with it, but then, like, certain things would happen. Yeah, my opponent would stick a memory blocker, and it'd be such a nuisance to deal with. Yeah, they've got the Dexter Greymon that can pop them, which is nice, but, you know, you're already missing several key points of interaction by the time you get there, like with the sliding an inheritable underneath, gaining memory, and things like that. Yeah, it's just, like, there's some real silver bullets to this deck that are just everyday staples in most decks, and I think that's definitely hurts it. We also don't know if the Doro Gray is going to end up on the English ban list at some point. It was rumored that maybe once we got BT10, that's when it would take effect. So far, zero news about that. We've been seeing tons of news about BT10, but nothing about the ban list being affected. So it might not even happen until EX3. So we might get all of BT10 with this deck at full power. But even then, I think it's Rogue, and I think it should actually go right behind Ancient, just because Ancient has a good matchup against a lot of decks in this format, and so I think it still deserves to be higher. And then Alphamon right behind it. Like, that feels right to me.
I agree. When the deck pops off, it pops up, but with all the staples and decks that just kind of counter it, yeah, it's became a Rogue deck.
Yeah, also, like, it really likes to use Cool Boy because Cool Boy is so cheap, right? And then you're going to use, like, a lot of other tamers. And when you start working in a lot of tamers, you really start to fall victim to a lot of those counter strategies, like Death X, Black or Greymon. Like, yeah, losing your tamers isn't, like, completely detrimental in this deck like it is in others, but I think it's still, like, a nuisance to have your tamers getting popped constantly. So, yeah, I think down here in Rogue feels pretty right. Armors, I think I still see Armors top. They're not winning events, so I don't want to move them to, like, up high or anything like that. I mean, I did go undefeated last week against actually pretty competent decks, competent players, and still managed to top with it using my wife's build, which is a very straightforward, like, no cheeky plays deck, and, you know, it's still really great. But I think also we're going to see a whole lot of stuff that's going to be able to counter Armors. Armor's big thing of being able to dodge deletion. Anything that gets around that, like if it's a DP minus mechanic or a bounce to hand mechanic, you know, this deck suffers. So I think we're going to kind of move it down here to the bottom of A tier. Like, it's still solid. It's still fast. This is going to be a format where you're going to need to be fast because once, like, decks like Shoutmon, like, start to roll, they roll fast. And if you can roll just as fast as them, you'll be in a good spot. So I think fast decks like Armors, as well as Imperial, we can go ahead and talk about Imperial. Basically, a lot of Imperial players moved over to Metal Garurumon X. And I think that's why we saw less representation here, because they kind of do some of the same stuff. They swing multiple times, and they survive getting hit, or survive hitting something in security with a higher DP, right? That's both these decks are basically the same. They just go about it different ways. But I think the consistency was better in the Metal Garurumon X just because of all the X antibody support and just being able to get tons and tons of draws. And it just, I think the OTK potential was a little bit better there, just a little bit. But I still think this is still a phenomenal deck. Like, I played it at the end of the format, like after Alphamon. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to this old deck, and you know, it's probably down in rogue tier by now. No, like, this deck is still just an absolute beast. I literally have not dropped a match with this deck yet, so in like weeks of playing this deck. So I think it's still super solid. Do you think anything in the format really is going to change this? Do you think it'll get knocked down into rogue tier, like either of these decks, the armors or the, because they're kind of similar play styles. They're both very quick.
I don't think they're gonna go down any at all. I think sitting at A towards the back is a perfect spot for them.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just because fast decks are going to be in a really good place this format, just being able to compete with the other decks. And if they can move quick enough, they'll be fine. So as long as they can remain consistent, I think, yeah, these guys are going to stay right here. Let's look at Grandis. Grandis, where does Grandis fall? Like, Grandis has been getting consistent. I mean, it's definitely still A tier. Like, it definitely still feels probably mid A tier, I would say. Like, it's got consistency issues. Like, if you've played Grandis or against Grandis and you just see them dig and dig and dig and bottom deck the wrong thing at the wrong time and have to dig more, like, they can suffer. But, like, once it gets going pretty good. But I think we're going to see a lot more, like, control heavy decks, security control, all kinds of stuff like that. And I think when you start seeing a lot of decks like that, Grandis will suffer. Like, it could work in a delicate plan. Most don't. Just because it slows it down a little bit.
I think putting it in between Imperial and Armor Rush would probably be a good spot for that deck. Just because having to dig and then it's somewhat worried about hitting into security options for the neg DP, but it's not as worried as Armor is.
Right. I almost think that maybe below Armor, simply because of the format. Like, between these three, it's definitely the best, right? Like, it's better than both of these decks for sure, because it can just go and just blow these two decks out of the water. But against a lot of the decks that we're going to see, it's a huge investment, right? So if it has to invest all the way up into this, like, double mega, that's a ton of memory. That's a ton of digging. And whereas these other two decks, if they lose a Digimon or two along the way, they don't care. They just make more. Like, it's a low investment for these guys. So I think actually below Armors feels right for me. Next, let's get to Metal X. I think Metal X is still, like, pretty much just on par with Imperial. Like, they do a lot of the same things. Like I said, they both, like, play fast. It's a little bit more consistent is all. So I think this is fine. Like, they're basically the same deck, just played differently, with more consistency. Next, though, we've got, and the reason I wanted to save these two for last is because these are very control-heavy decks. Bielstar and Black War Greymon both, they have the ability to match Shoutmon and take out Shoutmon. They do it completely different ways, though. Do you want to take Bielstar, since you've been playing Bielstar all format, and you've thought ahead to the next format of how you're going to counter Shoutmon and things like that? What's your take on where Bielstar is going to fall?
I say S tier or A tier, just because we have so many kill options, and especially now most Musketeer players are running the blue options, like the Coyotes, and then I'm running Metal Storm right now. That prevents them from saving, so they lost most of their pieces from going into ×4 or ×5.
Yeah, that's huge, and that's one of the biggest, like, big brain plays I've been thinking about for dealing with Shoutmon, and, like, letting people know, dealing with Shoutmon, if you can, like, yeah, you're thinking, oh, bounce that to hand so they can reuse it. Yeah, but think about this: they're going to lose that Shoutmon, or the Shoutmon inheritable that gives it rush. if they lose the ability to have rush, then the deck dies. Like they're hard playing this stuff and it sits there for a turn, and then you can just use like deletion on it or whatever, or run over it. It's all small stuff, right? It relies on dying and security, so its DP is pretty low on most of its cross, and so it's really easy to clear off the field, I think. And so if you can take out its ability to reuse rush over and over and over, you're going to absolutely stomp it. And so bouncing back to hand dodges the save mechanic, because then it can't material save at all. As well as just save in general. Even if they, swing into security and hit into something with like their level 4s, their champions, you just bounce those champions back to hand. They can't use the save mechanic on them. Yeah, they can still use them for cross from hand, but that's hand resources. You don't really want to use hand resources. You want to use resources on the field. So I think, yeah, you're right. BL Star actually has a great matchup this format, just because of the fact that it basically has 8 Cocytus breaths. You got the 4 regular and then the 4 more of the not brave metal. I always want to call it brave metal storms. And then kind of just going right off that into Black War Greymon. I think Black War Greymon goes right into S, and I actually think it's probably right above BL Star, because it can pop tamers, and we're gonna see less Gaomon, I think, and just more pure Black War Greymons, and like Gaomon is like a secondary kind of tech for when you can go offensive. But we're gonna see a ton of Black War Greymon simply because it's gonna counter tons of stuff in the format. It's one of the biggest counters to Shoutmon in general. Just you pop the Mikey, and then the Mikey can't use its ability to allow you to use your sources on field. So you spend half the game building up this huge amount of sources under your tamers, and then Black War Greymon hits the field and pops the Mikey, and you're like, okay, well now I just lose. So yeah, Black War Greymon just a great contender, as well as he's been solid this whole time. Like he's been consistently getting in the top cut. It hasn't really been winning. I think it's just the format kind of dictates it a little bit. It has access to a delicate plan, which is going to be huge, because a lot of the decks that are countering Shoutmon are going to be these security control-esque style decks, and any deck that has that access to a delicate plan or has it built in, like Ancient Greymon here, just into the Evo chain, those decks are going to do really well. So anytime you can have access to a delicate plan, a deck is going to be really solid. And so I think right here at the top of S tier for right now, for what we have available before we get into all the new stuff, like this right here feels pretty solid to me. Do you think anything in here needs to be changed before we move on to the new stuff?
I don't disagree with anything on this list right now.
Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about Shoutmon. Obviously S tier, right? If you don't have specific counters for this deck, it's going to blow you out of the water. You're going to hit into security. It's going to play these tamers. Every time these tamers get played, they get to play these champions for free. Not all of them, but most of them get to play champions from hand for free, and they just have tons of draw effects every time this happens. Like literally, these decks can almost deck themselves through pure draw power. It's insane how consistent these decks are, just super easily. And then they're going to get these free checks with their champions, right? I'm just going to swing in this champion. If it dies, I just save it. If it dies, I save it. And then they're going to have this huge board of saved Digimon, and then now they're going to start dropping their level 4 rush, their level 5 rush, and then they're just going to win off of that super easily. Like, a lot is happening, and there's like tons of stuff to learn in this deck, I think, and like learning the mechanic. But it's, once you learn it, it's like super straightforward and super simple. Like, you're just slam your head into the wall over and over and until you win. It's really just kind of that straightforward. I don't think it's like overly complicated at all. Do you think it's still deserves top of S, or do you think bottom of S?
I say bottom of S, just because the Black War deck can counter it really hard, and then the BL stars, we'll start running Psychmon.
True, yeah. And any deck that's stopping like reduction. So lots of decks are running like counters to Death X, because Death X can reduce its cost. If they are countering that, they're also countering the Shoutmons, being able to the whole cross mechanic here, which I've got pulled up. It literally says reduce the play cost of this card by 2 for each card placed. So yeah, it's a reduced play cost mechanic. So anytime you've got decks that can stop that, yeah, definitely going to hurt it a lot. So yeah, I mean, like all three of these decks, I think are all fantastic. They can really kind of go any way. Just depends on who pops off first, and then who doesn't see pieces. Like if nothing hits in BL Star security, yeah, they're going to be in a world of hurt for sure. But it's also got a lot of good speed as well to keep up. Like it's a level 4 rush deck, so it can slam into security very quickly as well as putting up a good defense. Whereas Shoutmon doesn't really put up a whole lot of defense, I don't think. Not like a tremendous amount. It's got a little bit in there, but not a ton. Next, we've got, let's see, what do we want to talk about? I want to talk about Maid Mode. So this is like Sakuyamon, right? The new Sakuyamon. This isn't going to be Yellow Hybrid or Security Control. I'm using this as a pure Sakuyamon deck. I think it's really neat. It's got lots of new consistency stuff. So the old Sakuyamon deck had the big issue of it could run the original Sakuyamon support, but it wasn't that great in tying into what the deck does. Now it's basically doubled up on what the deck wants to do, like using the plugin package and things like that. Now it just has a ton of stuff to pick from to build a deck, and it can actually build a pure deck that's like meant to all work together. I think it's in a great position. Now, where does that fall? Like, I want to put it bottom of road tier. Like, this is where I want this deck to be, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, where the format's going to go. Like, maybe bottom of road, but it might still just be in B tier, sadly, even with Maid Mode as powerful as it is. Well, what are your thoughts on that one?
I say bottom of Rogue, maybe in front of D Reaper, just because they do get a bunch more consistency cards to search for their pieces.
Right. It just, man, that tamer, the tamer is so key, and getting it out for free. It's just like, if you don't see it, oh god, it's detrimental. Yeah, I think there's hope for it. I think Rogue is solid. We'll just kind of see where it ends up in Rogue. Hopefully it climbs. I would love to see it climb to the top of Rogue tier. I don't see it going higher though. Venusmon. So Venusmon, I'm gonna kind of tie these two sort of together. We've got Jet Sylphie, which is like you're still your yellow hybrid. Now your yellow hybrid is doing lots of recovery for the loss of Jet Sylphie. We're working in Sakuyamon, and then we've got new Megas Torrican. We've got Maid Mode as well as Venusmon. Both of these yellow Megas are insanely strong. Turning off all your opponents' when digivolving effects and their when attacking effects really going to hurt the Shoutmon deck a whole lot, as well as they have a finite amount of resources, right? Once they burn through their level 4s with Rush and their level 5s with Rush, if they can't win in time, before they run out of resources, just because the opponent recovers so dang much, then they're just going to lose because of that. They don't really recover or anything like that. So Yellow Hybrid can literally just slowly burn them out. Like, as long as they can recover enough to stay ahead of losing, then they can just whittle down their opponent. And I think because of that, Yellow Hybrid still has hope, as well as security control in general, whether that be yellow purple or whatever. You just start working in a lot of yellow tactics, like slam down a Magna Angemon and then evo into whatever, like the Venusmon, or if you want to go into like an Ophanimon for more recovery. Like yellow purple still super solid. So I think these two decks, either way, are going whatever security control kind of variant you want to go with. Recovery variant decks are still super strong. I think it's more the recovery aspect in this format is going to be super good. BL Star is really good against them as well. So I think definitely up here. It's a control deck as well that can pop off pretty decently. And once it gets to that point where it can just keep nailboning for free and keep playing out promotes and rushing with promotes, and then you use what is it calling? Is it Calling from Darkness, where you just pop it, it goes to trash, and then you just grab it out of trash and then play it again. So you just keep recycling your BL stars and keep playing nailbone over and over and over. Like that's basically like their win con at the very end once it gets there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing too is it's just, compared to Yellow Hybrid, BL Star, that deck has just became more of Champion Rush, and we want to die in security checks, where yellow hybrid's like, yeah, we run a bunch of these kill options, so we'll kill it for you.
Right. Yeah, so it's in a great matchup against those kind of decks. Now against like more of a yellow purple where they're doing other things like stacking to security and things like that. That's an issue. But I think also BL is in a better position just because exactly what you just said. These yellow decks have tons of kill options specifically, and that's what Shoutmon wants also. It wants to die in security so it can save. BL Star being able to work in the blue package is in a much better position because they can bounce to hand and then just trash all those sources. And that's the big difference between these. Yellow Purple also having that ability to send to security is really fantastic as well. So like Yellow Purple probably still better than Yellow Hybrid. For the recovery security control style deck. Now, where these two fall, somewhere in A tier. I don't think they're S tier, just because they're kind of slow with the loss of Jet Sylphie. If they had Jet Sylphie at 4 for 1 Evo, like, yeah, it's just 2 Evo into a level 4, 1 Evo into Jet Sylphie, recover. 3 Evo into maid mode. Let me just play this option card, play a tamer for free, kill one of your Digimon, and put that option card in security to essentially recover again. So double recovery was pretty crazy. But now with the loss of Jet Sylphie, it's like recover this turn. Next turn, I'll do the the play with the maid mode. So it takes longer now, I think. But still has potential. Like if you work in enough Karis, then even Sakuyamon gets its, basically it gets its Evo reduced because you're going to suspend your Karis to gain all that memory back. So I think there's still workarounds for sure to help keep it up here. I think it's probably better than Grandis though. Like probably not. Well, yeah. So Yellow Purple proved that it's better, I think, than Grandis. Honestly, Yellow Purple probably proved that it's better than all of these decks because that's where we've ended the format at, is with Yellow Purple security control basically kind of dominating this end of the BT9 format, dominating all these decks here, seeing way more play. And I think there's, with the implementation of all this new support like maid mode and things like that, even the yellow hybrid variant is going to be in a good position. Now I could be wrong. Yellow hybrid might still be down here and yellow purple up here. I'm just going to kind of keep them together for right now though, just to see. Also, I'm just a fanboy for yellow hybrid. I just think this deck is really neat. Hate me or not, it is what it is. So I'm sure you're gonna have.
I guess I'll just the subscriber count go down.
Yeah, the hate right there. But yeah, I do think yellow purple security control definitely top of A tier. For sure, just because it's got lots of workarounds. But it doesn't really affect these guys as much. It's got a good matchup against Shoutmon, but not necessarily these other two, I don't think. Moving on, though. All right, we took a lot of time on that one. Let's go into Bloom Lord. You want to take Bloom Lord?
I feel like Bloom Lord is going to be bottom A tier, maybe ahead of Metal Garurumon. Just because it takes full advantage of Digisorption, and it can just check so quick and build up so quick.
Yeah, it's got lots of consistency stuff. It's got really crazy swarm abilities too. Like, and it's not like it's something that's like susceptible to, say, BL Star. If you hit the red option in security with this guy, it doesn't matter because all their field is just filled with multiple levels, multiple DPs, multiple everything. It's not like it's playing out just a whole bunch of this one thing, right? So like it's got pretty good dodging abilities, but it's still going to be super susceptible to any sort of security control deck, or like BL Star, the yellow purple security control, yellow hybrid. Like it's gonna definitely struggle against those. I think it'll also struggle against Black War Greymon, just because Black War Greymon can clear the field so easily. Whether it's popping stuff just with its ability or attacking unsuspended Digimon, like it's gonna never let you build up a board if it can help it. So I think it's still going to struggle against several of these decks, but at the same time, I think it's got a great position against a lot of other decks in here as well. All right.
Definitely.
Jessmon. I feel awkward about Jesmon. It gets a ton of support. It gets a new starter deck. It's got lots of stuff. But even still, this deck never did anything in JP. Not even like halfway decent.
It had one top.
One top. I'm pretty sure I saw all these other decks like absolutely destroyed throughout this whole format. Even Alphamon still stayed really strong throughout BT10 and JP. Jesmon though just never did anything. I don't even know why. Like, it's got all this new stuff. I think losing Savior has really hurt this deck, and it's remained just limping. Even with new support, it's still struggling with that loss of Savior. That Savior is so good. Super good. Attack twice? Come on.
If that Savior was still in the format, that would be top S tier.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. Like, with that Savior still, and with all this new support, God, I cannot imagine how strong this deck would be. But as it is, oh man, I'm thinking, I either want to put it here at the bottom of A tier, or I want to put it behind Ancient Greymon. Like, I'm still on the fence about moving Ancient Greymon up here as well, to bottom of A tier, but
I want to do bottom of A tier, but that's because I played that deck for so long when Savior was at 4, I just wanted to do good.
Alright. I'm gonna drop it here. I'm gonna drop it here. That feels okay. I'm really curious about what the comments think about Jesmon being here. If anyone's still watching at this point, because we're like over 30 minutes into the video by now. Where do you think this deck, Jesmon, like specifically Jesmon, where should Jesmon go? Canovisemon, all right, the Gamamon deck. You're like, the most boxes you've probably ever bought in this game is going to be for just this guy right here, for this deck. Where does
top
it?
Of S tier?
Yeah, definitely not. Unfortunately, like, I think it's super fun. It's super neat. But it's like still missing. Like, I think missing its mega honestly really hurts it. Like, Canovice himself feels like a mega, but it's like it's still only a level 5. Like, there's still room to go. There's megas you can work in that fit decently well, but I think we still need to see a Gamamon, a true Gamamon mega, right?
It's gonna have to go to bottom of Rogue.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but the issue is it's Champion Rush, and you're digging for 4 cards in your deck. You're looking for at least one of them to pop off.
Right. I mean,
it's gonna have the same issue as Red.
That's kind of BL Star, right? I mean, BL Star is Champion Rush, and you're digging for 4 cards in your deck. But it's got tons of options, I guess, to help offset that, right?
It's also got stuff like we've got Scatter Mode and Dobermon, where you're digging, drawing, and grabbing.
True. It's a consistency monster, whereas, Canovice not. I almost think, unfortunately, buddy, I think I gotta move it down to B tier. Down here with Jellymon, Ulforce, Rush. It's like very similar. Like, it's a Champion Rush thing that's really trying to dig into some really key pieces without having the consistency. Like, 100%, it's a red deck, man. I've played red decks, and every time I touch a red deck, I just brick like a mofo. Like, it is that bad. I don't know what to do about it. Red decks just always seem to struggle with me, and this is kind of the same thing. It is a red deck. Yeah, it's got the other colors, the other level 4s, champions, but they all just digivolve on top of the red Gamamons, right? And then it goes back into a Canovisemon, which is another red. Yeah, unfortunately, and you can't even work in consistency boosters like Red Memory Boost because of all the different colors, right? It's got green, blue, purple. Like, you can't even really run Red Memory Boost. You need different types of, like, pure draw.
Yeah, that's the big issue with that deck, is with Wizen being green, Kaos being blue, Goulish being purple. Like, you could run them in there, but if you get 4 cards off the top of your deck and they're all colors you can't grab, that sucks.
Yeah, bottom deck half your champions just about. Like, yeah, it's not pleasant. So yeah, I think the consistency, like, it's got a lot of power there, but it's really dependent on a lot of pieces. You got to have your Tamer out there. You know, you've got to see your Canovisemons, and like, even once you get them out there, like, say you do get that really nice play, that's still multiple turns of evoing up into all this. and then it's like, okay, and then it's just kind of, it punches, but it's not like it's an OTK punch, right? We're not punching you for 5 and clearing your entire security stack. It's got, checking what, 2, 3, something like that. I think it's 3.
Yeah, it can check 3. I mean, if you get more of the promo heroes out, you could check a lot.
True, but those are like multiple turns of playing out tamers, right? That's like taking almost your whole turn of playing out those tamers. Like, it's not exactly ideal.
Yeah.
So, and that's just the longer it takes, and yeah. But it's still neat. It's still solid. I think it's still going to be playable, especially at locals. I don't expect us to see any sort of top cut in regionals, though, and I think that's what's going to keep it. These decks all here, we could see these top 16 of a regional. I don't see any of these guys hitting top 16 of a regional, though. Like, taking locals, absolutely, but not a regional, no. And I think that's where we're going to end it here today. I know the video is kind of long. Hopefully you enjoyed this this bounce around a little bit, and as well as the discussion between two people. Let me know what you think. Do you like the back and forth, or do you prefer where I just give my straightforward opinion? No ifs, ands, or buts. No questioning my authority. Which ones do you prefer? All right, everybody. See you next time. And right after I click stop, we realized that we forgot Minerva Loop. Minerva Loop going to be super, super awesome for all those fans out there playing some purple. This is like the new way to like play purple, and it's be incredibly good. Basically, this is the new Lilithmon Lilith Loop deck, but more consistent and requires less setup. And I think that's a huge factor, is that so much less setup, so you can run more optimal other pieces involved in the deck, rather than relying on so many cards to fill up your trash so fast for Lilith. You can just run really good stuff now all the way up, and Minerva Loop just being able to gain you like basically an extra 4 memory during this loop, and you could do it multiple times, right? And so that's, as long as you've got the cards to play and you can just keep going, you could just keep looping and gaining 4 memory multiple times. So that's what makes it basically better than Lilith. Is, yeah, you're still basically getting kind of the same amount of memory. Lilith gives you 2 for playing an option, and then you play the 2 Jack Raids, that's going to give you 1 each, so you basically get 4 memory. Whereas this, though, the way it's actually built is it actually provides a way better loop, rather than needing to go into like what is it, the Zwart to bounce the Lilith back to hand to go back into another Lilith, like, instead of going about it that way. And just, again, less setup, so you can literally just do this from like turn 3 or something like that and just start going, and I think that's really, really powerful. So I'm thinking, man, do I put it, what do you think? Do you think top of Rogue, somewhere down here in A?
I'm gonna say in front of Metal Garuru.
Yeah. Well, I feel like
Yeah,
these 3 are almost all the same. I think right there. I think ahead of all 3 of those, because all 3 of these are kind of very similar. Like, we swing into security and we survive security. Like, when this deck's gonna pop off, like, Ying is gonna just absolutely devastate with this deck. I think right here, Minerva Loop. I'm definitely curious to see. Like, this is a lot of A, but I think, yeah, when this deck pops off, and when it gets figured out, like True Blue figured out, we're definitely going to see a rise in it. Just like we saw with Lilith Loop. Once people saw Lilith Loop was still competitive, everyone jumped on it, and it did phenomenal. I think we'll see the same thing here with Minerva Loop.